Good evening, everybody. You're all very, very welcome to the Lexicon today. And I'm just so thrilled to be here to be able to launch this wonderful exhibition. And it's been such a pleasure and a privilege working with Anne and Christopher for the last couple of weeks, months on this. Anne and Christopher have lived in Laoghaire-Rathdown area for 56 years, at Richmond Hill, Monkstown for 46 years before the move to Muse House in Dunleary in 2011. The exhibition highlights their intriguing family history. Christopher was born into an extraordinary Irish family with Ulster Presbyterians on the one side, and on the other, he is a great grandson of Daniel O'Connell, the Liberator. Now, not to be outdone, Anne can trace her mother's family back to the great Finn McCool. On her father's side, the Macards, who originated in Macau in Poland, immigrated and established a silk textile business in London. Anne and Christopher share the same birthday, and furthermore, their first appearance on stage were in separate school productions of the same play, Bernard Shaw's Arms and the Man, with Anne in London and Christopher in Dublin. Both went on to study at Trinity College, Dublin, and they appeared together with the DU Players before forging careers abroad, Anne in England and Christopher in North America. They met again on Television Éireann, RTE, being amongst those who planned and operated the earliest transmissions. Christopher initiated such iconic series as Tulka Row, which we'd all be familiar with, and Anne produced most of the classical music programs throughout her extensive career, while juggling her other career as a soprano in recitals, oratorio, and opera. Some of the most popular TV programs which she directed were Music in the Making, 5 operas in the RTE Proms, and Piano Plus with John O'Connor. Christopher moved to and fro between TV and theatre. He had executive positions at the Abbey Theatre, the Irish Theatre Company, and the Lyric Theatre Belfast. He has lectured on Irish theatre in 10 countries on 4 continents. Among his many books, and I hope you've had an opportunity to see many of them that are here on display tonight, are The Boys. And this was a joint biography of Hilton Edwards and Micheál McLemore, founders of the Dublin Gate Theatre. And even tonight, you know, chatting to some of your beautiful grandchildren, the 4 of them, and they admitted, well, they kind of knew they had done some of this stuff, but they had no idea the extent of what you had covered until they came here tonight. So I told them to have far more respect for you now and do everything they're told and be there to, and to hear everything about you. So expect to be spoiled rotten by your 4 grandchildren, and they're a credit to you. They're lovely children. It's wonderful to see so many other family and friends that are here to celebrate. And as Marion said, many of you have travelled from near and far to be here tonight to celebrate with Anne and Christopher. So all that's left for me to do is to, with you, celebrate their ongoing work and impact. And I am delighted to declare that it will be all right on the night, and the exhibition is now launched. My congratulations to you.
It is really difficult to talk about Christopher and Anne in terms of their work ethic. They are writers, directors, performers, producers for the stage, for radio, for television, in print and on film, and over the decades have achieved perfection in all of these areas. And when I see how much they've done and how well they've done it, I begin to feel that the rest of us are just wasters hanging around doing nothing. And how have they managed all of this? And from my point of view within this, I think I can best say about them as to misphrase the Christopher Wren quote, if you want to seek their greatness, look around you. So read the posters and you get everything. From my point, I would just like to go over some of the memories I have of Christopher and Anne, knowing them, first of all, in a working relationship. And through that, a friendship developed over the many years. And through that, I came to know them really well and came to enjoy everything that I learned from them, and also to acknowledge the wry humour of Anne and the more wicked humour of Christopher. I met Anne again professionally first, I think maybe the end of the 80s. And she was the senior producer up in RTE. And at the time, the bicentenary of Mozart was about to be established there. And Anne came to me and said, I have a very good idea of a television play that should be written about Mozart. And it's about Michael Kelly. Now, I would not have a quarter, no, more than a quarter, just an iota of the knowledge of music that Anne has. And I said, who is Michael Kelly? And she said, Michael Kelly was Irish. He was a great friend of Mozart. Mozart regarded him as one of the best tenors that was around, and actually cast him in the premiere of The Marriage of Figaro. And Michael Kelly was also a composer, not of note, but he was a composer. And Anne said, this could make a very good television play, and I'd love you to write the script. So I went on with the script, and over the next 5 or 6 weeks, I used to meet Anne regularly, and I would be working on the plotting of the script. This should happen, that should happen, this should happen. And Anne would tell me about the musical connections and where they should go and where they should come. Most of the time, I hadn't a clue what Anne was talking about. I just knew about the characters and the way they should be. And at one particular stage, she said to me, the script is shaping up very well, she said, but we need to deal with counterpointing. And as if I knew what she was talking about, I said, that's a very good idea. We really should do that. And she said, good. So would you do a little piece where Kelly comes to Mozart and says, I really want to study counterpointing. And I was trying to pick up clues along the way from this story as to what the hell was this about. And she said, and Mozart would say something back to Kelly saying, but the way you write melody is sufficient. You don't need counterpointing. And this went on and on and on. And I went home and I was looking at a blank sheet of paper, wondering, what can I write down here? Because I've no idea what Anne McCarr was talking about. So I went back to her at one time and I said, Anne, what exactly is counterpointing? And she looked at me as if to say, why didn't you ask me that 2 or 3 weeks ago? And we would have moved on from this. But she very kindly explained the whole musical regime of counterpointing, which I'd love to be able to rattle off to you now, but I can't, but you probably know what it is either. You probably know about music than I do. And if you don't, pretend you do. And so ever after that, for a few years, if I met Anne out socially or through work or in the theatre or something, Anne would take me aside and she would say to me in a nice little whisper, how are you getting on at the countercant? Christopher said to me, why don't we meet for lunch one time and we will talk about your play, you can tell me all about it. I said, that's fine. And he said, we'll meet in the restaurant in the National Gallery. And I said, okay, that's great, Christopher. We'll meet at 1 o'clock, we'll eat, and then we'll talk. I said, that's great. So I went along. I was petrified turning up because this was a conversation that would probably take an hour. And the outcome of that hour's conversation was going to legislate for what the next 6 months would be for me, either writing a play or not knowing what to do. So we both turned up and we shook hands and we met and we found a table, and it was a buffet dinner, you probably remember it. And we went over, you went first up to the counter and you filled up your plate with whatever food you had, and you walked back to the table, you sat at the table. Then I went up and I did something that with my nephews and nieces, what I was always telling them as they grew up, that when you're going out on a first date, if you ever go into a restaurant with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, never order spaghetti bolognese because it's very difficult to eat and you're going to look like an idiot with things hanging out of your mouth. And if that's the first date, there's not going to be a second date. So always remember, on the fifth or sixth date, maybe you can chance spaghetti bolognese. Now, this was a kind of a mantra that I had for all my young friends, that I wanted to see them happy. And yet, when I got up on the buffet, my mind must have been in 3 different places at the same time, because I went along and remember them saying yes, and I said, I'll have the spaghetti bolognese, please. So I got this big, full plate of spaghetti bolognese, which I put onto the tray, knives and forks, condiments, the whole lot, and brought it back. And as I was walking back to Christopher, who was sitting at the table, I could see Christopher had a lot of papers out and pens. So I knew this was going to be a very intense conversation. So I went up, and with the tray shaking a little bit, and I went up to the table, and just as I was sitting down, I tilted the tray slightly that way. And as though in slow motion, the plate started a journey across the tray, hit the lip of the plate, and took off like a spaceship. If Christopher was sitting there, and I would come in from this angle, the plate hit about there, and everything lifted from it as it went over this end, and Christopher was still there, and it fell on the floor right there, missed him by about that much. And I thought, I may as well just get my coat and go home now, because he's going to say, what sort of an idiot is this fella? I never thought he could be as stupid as this. There was spaghetti bolognese all over the floor, and I was looking at that, wondering whether to sit down or start to clean it up or what. And I looked over at Christopher thinking he would probably, being in this professional lunch, have a frown on his face. Christopher was laughing his head off at this. And he thought it was the most hilarious thing he had seen for ages. Now, the ending is good from all sides because Christopher liked the play very much. He said to me, do you have a title for it? And I said, I do. And I said, I was thinking of calling it Valentine's Day. And he said, it is a comedy, isn't it? And I said, yes. And he said, you call that Valentine's Day, and they'll all think it's the Valentine's Day Massacre by Al Capone. He said, think of something else. And I said, the second choice would be, say, cheese. And he said, that's the one. So that was the title that the play went out in. And it went on in the Abbey. It was scheduled to go on for 5 weeks. It ran for 9 weeks. And made a fortune for the Abbey. Ben Barnes also directed that. And it was a bonding thing that brought us together. And ever since then, we have been the best of friends. And one of the nicest things that we do these days, well, not these days, not since COVID arrived, but if we went to plays, we used to meet up on the Dart coming home from the play. Christopher and Anne going to Monkstown, I was going on to Greystones. And we'd have a good look around the carriage of the Dart to see, was there anybody here that was in the play, or was there anybody here that was at the play that we know of before we would discuss it. And gales of laughter in the Dart on the way home. And for that, and for so many things, I want to say a thank you to Anne and Christopher, but particularly for the great contribution down the years, down the decades, they have given to Irish culture and arts, well, not just in Ireland, but around the world, by what they have done. And personally, I thank them for the friendship, the company, and all the smiles along the way. And long may it last. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for ingratiating us by coming and for this wonderful occasion. Many thanks.
You are indeed most fortunate in presiding over this wonderful library service. Lauren is mo fag na hihan.
And thank you, Marion. All this is your fault. I mean, idea.
We should have been overcome with embarrassment.
But we weren't really, were we? Yeah.
We discovered all sorts of things about our past that we'd forgotten.
And even some things that we wished we'd forgotten. Marion, anyway, has done all the donkey work.
The what?
The donkey work.
You mustn't say donkey work.
Oh, mustn't I? Well, she's worked her ass off then.
Thank you, Bernard. Did you know, ladies and gentlemen, that Bernard's portrait is now most appropriately in the National Collection? It's hung in the Abbey Theatre, and he is indeed a national treasure.
And also, because he's such a wonderful playwright, he's able to invent all sorts of virtues that he thinks we have, but we haven't.
And thank you all for coming. You are the best audience we ever had.
And I think we really had no idea we had so many friends. Thank you.
Sloan.
Sloan.